This is Hunt Nebraska, the official podcast for insight into Nebraska's hunting and shooting sports community. Be sure to give us a follow on Facebook, our space for sharing stories, information, tips, and techniques. Now, Hunt Nebraska. And welcome into the Hunt Nebraska cabin, folks. It's been a while since we've been able to all get together. Now, you wouldn't notice that if you're catching us on YouTube or on SoundCloud, the audio platform, or whatever audio platform you might be visiting us from, because the editing all of a sudden caught up. The computer system started working. The upload, download stuff all kind of synced. Finally, we had a lot of at least a couple of episodes of Hunter Hangouts that finally got posted.
And that had nothing to do with the fact that rifle deer season was last week.
Didn't help the situation by any means. Thanks for the clarification. But also our software went through an update, and there for a while, one show in particular, Adam Kester, talking about Access, which actually you guys recorded right after, I think, the opener, early November. I think it was after. It
was before
deer
Upland
season.
Well, I think it was after. It was after Upland Bird season.
Right after Upland opened. Yep.
Yeah, that one downloaded, but only half of it.
Oh.
And so we had to restart the whole process, which I find out takes quite a while. But we just about posted the wrong one that was only like 10 minutes long of a 40-minute hangout. So we got that corrected, but we're going to try to do some more of these as things kind of settle down around here now that we are past the November firearm season here in Nebraska. Plenty of things to do, but today we've got in the studio, we've got Rachel Carlson, shooting range coordinator for the state of Nebraska, behind mission control here. We've also got Kyle Gasson, our hunter ed coordinator, in the cabin, as well as me, Hershey. We're all three with your Nebraska Game and Parks, and boy, I'm excited, guys. I am really excited. I know we are now at the point, and I don't like bringing this up, but I have to, because we're all about education and information. November firearm season done. A lot of folks, that's our most popular one, right? And kind of starts the downhill side of things just a little bit, because now all the seasons that are open have been open. And so once you reach that peak, that pinnacle, folks, that means that the opposite starts coming true. You don't have more seasons opening up than you do closing. And so now we start seeing that. There are some seasons still that are going to be coming up, and we're going to hit on one here that starts, it's the entire month of December, so it starts on the 1st. But also, we've got the end of turkey season coming up Saturday as we record this.
Oh, really?
Yes.
November the 30th. We've got a reduced fall season now, basically October, November, because in response to what we're seeing on the landscape as far as turkey numbers have come down, and our biologists and our managers are taking that into consideration. Also, some concern from our hunters. There's heard a lot of good things about seeing turkeys across the landscape this fall. Fall season's never been one of our more popular of turkey seasons. That's always been spring. But at the same token, there are some folks that still like to take advantage of that resource, and we have a healthy population that's able to withstand that. So, but season ends November 30th now for fall turkey season. Pheasant season, quail season.
We got some time.
Open.
There's lots of time.
Prairie grouse goes right in with that, but they get a little bit trickier this time of year.
Oh, they all do. You got to think about the population. We're getting the easy ones right away. Then they usually have to work a little bit harder for the smarter birds.
But those grouse kind of watching you a little bit more now. It's just like, I know what that guy, that two-legged person over there is getting ready to do. We're getting out of here.
A little too close.
Yeah, squirrel and rabbit wide open will be, squirrel till the end of January, rabbit until the end of February. Waterfowl season's going great guns right now. We got some pictures from our own TJ Walker from our wildlife division of ducks and geese, and I don't ever remember an invite, but I have seen that.
It's strange how that happens sometimes.
Yeah. So that's taking place. You've got fur harvester season going on, trapping, hunting, calling, all that for we're not yet bobcats. That starts in December, right? But raccoons, there's folks out chasing them, which also means they might be finding skunks and opossums and all that good stuff. Coyotes, fox are part of our game animals, but coyotes are not.
Right.
But there are going to be some more folks probably taking advantage of that opportunity as well. But anyway, it's just that time of the year. Go out, take advantage of it, because this too shall pass. Unfortunately, it'll disappear faster than we want it to. We're sitting on the precipice, and I did use the word precipice.
Wow.
I know. Don't ask me to spell it, but of one of my favorite holidays. And I know we will not get this edited before we're partaking in that holiday, but tomorrow is Thanksgiving. And that's why we have our turkey right here on our table. If you're watching us from YouTube, we got our turkey head right there. But I don't know about you guys, but I'm always excited about Thanksgiving.
Totally.
I mean, just the memories of that type of thing. What are some of your favorite memories of Thanksgiving, Rachel?
Oh, getting the family to go up to, it was kind of a family reunion, going up to Lions in Oakland.
Lions. Oh, wow.
Yep.
That's a spot most people are going to think, where is... That's why you used Oakland.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, if I remember right, between Oakland and, is it Swedesburg? There's
It's
kind of
Swedesburg.
Swedesburg. Isn't there kind of a healthy competition about which one's the capital? One's the Danish capital, one's the Swedish capital?
Yeah.
Which
I think
one's
Oakland's the Swedish capital.
Oh, we'll see it. And it's begun. So lots of good things. What about you, Kyle?
Lots and lots of food.
Lots,
my family is known for eating just meat and potatoes all the time. So we usually, I think for our family get-togethers, it's 10 to 20 pounds of mashed potatoes being made up.
That's in my bigger extended family. That's definitely, you'd never have enough mashed potatoes.
There's never leftover mashed potatoes, I feel
It's weird
like.
how that happens, right?
Not near as much. At least they don't share those. In our smaller immediate family, we've got some other sides that help kind of take the brunt of some of the mashed potatoes. I like squash. I've really come to appreciate that a little bit more. I do not like sweet potatoes. I do not like yams. They're the exact same thing. But some folks do, and so that takes a little heat off.
Not if you cover them in marshmallows and other brown sugar and enough other sweets on it.
In fact, the one thing I've got to be careful are those folks, and you know who I'm talking about, that try to sneak in a pie that looks kind of like pumpkin, but not quite, and almost tastes like pumpkin pie, but doesn't. Oh. And I don't know what cruel punishment someone developed. Hey, let's make a pie that's almost pumpkin pie, but it's not. Let's make it out of giggle, sweet potatoes. No, that's just mean. But that's fun. I love Thanksgiving because, again, like you guys said, food, family. You got friends in there. You got some football going on as well to kick it off. You got pheasants that you can hunt.
One more thing. We have the pheasant release.
That we do. We had the pheasant release going on ahead of the holidays, so maybe they're out there already. Don't know. Well, by the time we hear this, it will be, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there'll still be some roosters out there. That's at 18 different wildlife management areas across the state. You can check our website, outdoornebraska.gov, for those specific locations. But, it's fun. It's just a wonderful time. We all have a little bit extra time to kind of catch our breath with the holiday being on a Thursday, and a good number of folks, us included, not having to show up for work on Friday. And then all of a sudden you wake up on that third day and it's just like, it's Saturday. Oh my goodness, this is wonderful. So I don't know why we don't celebrate Thanksgiving a little bit more. It gets kind of lost, I think, between Halloween, which has become the second most decorated for holiday, and the first most decorated for holiday, which is the Christmas season. We kind of forget about it. I mean, you guys have probably heard me rant about it, and I'll get off my soapbox here soon. But Thanksgiving might be the only holiday that you can go to a big box store and find the decorations for, or the items like paper plates on sale, maybe even clearance ahead of the holiday. The rest of them, Halloween candy, you got to wait till November 1st at least. Christmas stuff, at least the 26th, if not a day or two later, depending on how that falls. Thanksgiving, no, it might be November 16th all of a sudden. We're marking it down 50% type stuff. It doesn't get the respect that it deserves. And the beauty of it, you don't have to worry about presents. There's no stress about, do I need to get a gift for this person? What if they get one for me? I don't know. Am I supposed to send cards? Don't send cards. Should we send everybody an email? Should I tell the whole world what my family's been doing the last 365 days? All that type of stuff. Just no pressure. No pressure.
No pressure. He doesn't consider cooking pressure at all, apparently.
No, mainly because I'm not allowed in the kitchen. But two, I'm a consumer. I am on the consumer and not the producer. But the couches get worked out a little bit more too. You'd think of any day that the furniture company would have a sale, it'd be right ahead of Thanksgiving or just after, not President's Day. Can you imagine that? I think one thing that would shock our former president, General George Washington, the most is on his birthday, it's most known for mattress sales. I don't know the connections, but it's there. Try not to laugh, Rachel. All right.
So hard.
All right, off the soapbox. We're going to need the Hunt Nebraska soapbox for me as well. Now we just lost our
we
turkey.
lost the turkey.
For those not watching us on YouTube, we just lost the turkey, which it has fallen on the floor before you can tell.
But despite that falling off the table, Hunt Nebraska is trying to bring Thanksgiving importance back.
That's right. We're bringing the cool back into Thanksgiving. Next year, I think we should all get turkeys and walk them around.
Oh, that would garner some attention. That's for sure.
I think so. But knowing that this won't be edited in time for that, we're going to move on to December. Welcome to December, folks.
Okay.
Just that quick of transition. And like I said, there are not a lot of seasons to open up, but one of them is, I think, another thing that can be overlooked, just like Thanksgiving, is another opportunity to chase deer.
Oh, yeah. Not just any deer. I mean, you can go and keep chasing your bucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, be just antlerless.
December is the last month you can harvest a antlered deer in the state of Nebraska during the current hunting season. Mm-hmm. That's it.
So if you spotted one during rifle season and you didn't get him and you want to go out there and get him, there's a way to do it.
There is a way to do it. And I think that there is some, that going on. I didn't get my deer during rifle season. And this year we know harvest was down. Deer population's down, and we know kind of going into the season it would be that way because we've been doing some management in some areas. We've been lowering the deer population because of just interaction we're getting with landowners and others that also get a say in it. But there's also that thought of I did get my deer. I want to go do this again. And 9-day season is not very long. And if you have an obligation on either one of those weekends, then it might be down to, I get a couple of days. And, you're not going to necessarily stay out there and miss chili and cinnamon rolls for lunch on Saturday. So you got to cut that out as well. So that's what's the beauty of this December season. So without further ado, Kyle, fill us in on the details. What are we talking about?
Muzzleloader season.
Woohoo!
You can't forget about. I mean, it's a little bit different, a little bit of a change, but it's a sport that I've been looking to get more into myself. I haven't been getting into muzzleloading. I've been looking at a few muzzleloaders, and so this is kind of why I steer we're talking about what to talk about for our podcast. I'm like, hey, it's muzzleloader season, and I got two well-known experts.
Oh wow!
Here. I'm going to give you
not
guys
not a muzzleloader hunting, just muzzleloader shooting.
Just muzzleloader. Okay, all right. Well, I'll do the hunting side. You do the muzzleloader.
So
side.
I got here. So I figured I'd kind of come along here and kind of start learning from you guys a little bit of what I need to be knowing to get in the field, what I need to get ready to do. So that way, maybe not for this season, but next season when it comes around, and maybe this.
Are
season.
You out of tags? Is that what you're saying?
I am at it. Well, technically, I still have a one of those buck tags that's season choice.
Okay.
So
all right, for whitetail or is it?
Yep, whitetail. So I can still go out and give it a try, or I can just
see. And I've been a big user of that because I like to archery hunt. Usually busy, and I don't have much luck during rifle season anyway. And so I use a muzzleloader for that tag. This year, a little different. I went with just an archery only tag, and then I'm going to get a muzzleloader only tag this year. But that's kind of the cool thing about the season's choice tags that we have, whether they're antlerless or allow the harvest of an antler deer. Mm-hmm. That muzzleloader is definitely one of those things. And I got to tell you, I don't know how you got into shooting muzzleloaders, but mine was via my wife, whose father really enjoyed muzzleloading for deer.
Oh.
Because where he lives, they've got an early October season, and him and his wife really liked and therefore wanted and thought they needed venison in the freezer. And by about October, it was running out. In the state they had the deer season that was open, muzzleloader. And so he'd go out on this little 30, 40 acre plot of ground there, and it happened to be that it had water sources. And in early October, when it's warm, that's what deer are hitting right after they get out of bed before they start walking around at night. And so he really got into it and had some Muzzleloader, you started with something like what we have in the corner here that we'll grab out here soon, and then moved on to some others a little bit. But at the same time, my wife, who started dating me, kind of got into hunting a little bit more, and we couldn't use rifles. We had to use shotguns for our gun hunting of deer, and shotguns with slugs kick. There's nothing fun. There's nothing super accurate about some of the original setups. Where with muzzleloaders, there's a lot more accurate. A lot, especially the shotguns we were using. And not to mention that the recoil isn't as bad. Didn't have to be as bad. More accuracy, less recoil, win-win right there.
Yeah, sounds great.
And then do you have a little bit better range too even?
Yes, we did. We did. That's an excellent point.
Might not have to quite as close.
Excellent point. My longest shot on any critter was with the muzzleloader.
Oh,
really?
Yep.
When you say any critter.
On any critter. Well, I feel like it happens to be a tie between a white-tailed doe and a pronghorn buck out in the grasslands. And it was both about the same distance, 75 yards. Not huge distance, but for me, shotguns, a lot of our deer were taken within 20 yards. Shotgun. It was basically, in my opinion, like bow hunting with something that hurt and wasn't near as accurate as the bow and arrow. But
bow hunting, but less fun.
That was gun hunting. So we'll get into it. How did you get into it?
So I was recruited to go become a muzzleloader instructor, and so I figured I should know how to shoot them.
And that's why she's our shooting range coordinator, folks.
Yes.
Her interest is, I'm going to become an instructor. I haven't shot it before, but I'm going to
teach everybody how to do it. So I did a little practice on the range and taught by some of the folks here. And then I went to a very fun weekend where I got to learn how to shoot muzzleloaders, and we did a hunting skills camp workshop. It was awesome.
That is fun. And we used to do a lot of youth camps. We still do now through the Turpin Outdoor Education Center, but we used to go to the residential 4-H camps here in the state of Nebraska. And it still makes me sad about the Nebraska State 4-H camp out there near Halsey that burned down. But we'd have some kids in there that had never shot at all. And then they'd have an opportunity to go shotgun, rimfire rifle, archery, and muzzleloader. And we had some kids that just already like to hunt, already like to shoot, so they saw this camp and signed right up for it. But very, very, very few of them, when they'd ask, all right, who shot shotguns? All the hands would go up. Who shot rifle? Most of the hands would go up. Who shot archery? About half. Who shot muzzleloaders? And people would be like,
what's that?
What are you talking about? By the end, they were ecstatic. Now, they were shooting maybe one round ball per one round ball per maybe 25, 22 cartridges. But at the same token, they just had fun with the whole process. And it is kind of fun.
Muzzleloader is a quality, not a quantity type sport.
Oh, there you go. There you go. You get to mess with it just a little bit. Powders, different types, different projectiles. And I'm guessing where you want to go with this, just a little bit. Kyle?
Oh, I'm along for the ride at this point. But
You're along for the ride.
But no. A little bit of just, talking about how I said the biggest one. I think a lot of your muzzleloader hunters are probably looking at maybe some of your rifle hunters switching over from, I didn't get anything, or I want a few more days to go hunting. We've got a whole month season versus a 9-day season. So that conversion of just kind of getting to know what's a little bit of the differences, what they need to know. I mean, obviously we call it a muzzleloader, so that kind of, this name kind of defines what it is, right?
Loaded from the muzzle.
I mean, exactly. That's how our regs read it out. So
yeah, what are our regulations? And the nice thing, folks, is most muzzleloaders you're going to go find in a sporting goods store are going to meet our minimums and that type of stuff. Hunter education, this doesn't use the same powder,
right?
That modern smokeless firearms like shotguns and centerfire rifles and even rimfire rifles use. So there's some difference there. But what is the regulation? We've got a book right here. Did you guys open it to that page?
I opened it to the season.
I'll get to the back part here. Should be.
Because I'd be curious to know, because I don't off the top of my head, what types of muzzleloaders are permitted.
All right.
In that.
Well, if we're looking at a muzzleloading rifle, it needs to be a 44 caliber or larger. If we're looking at muzzleloading muskets, 62 caliber or larger.
Oh, and hold on right there.
Because there's a difference.
Muzzleloading rifle, 44.
Yep.
And the two most common calibers are
50 and 50.
50 is probably the most common.
Yeah.
And then you've got some at that 45. But
Sure.
there's also the 54. Yep. Those 45 probably gained a little bit more in the inline. The traditional that we'll talk about here, 54 is probably the next most common. So we're golden there.
Okay.
But what was the next one?
There's a muzzleloading musket.
And the difference between a muzzleloader rifle and a muzzleloading musket is?
Should be the rifling in the barrel. We have a rifled barrel with a rifle where you get your name, lands and grooves in that inside of the bore, and then your musket doesn't have those.
Doesn't have it. No, I got to ask the former conservation officer, because we have it in our books, but how many times in the field did you come across someone using a musket?
Oh,
0 times.
0 times. He's old
Well,
up
and
there.
here's the other part too. I mean, I didn't come across many muzzleloaders in the field either, in general.
Really?
So it wasn't. I would always find a couple, but it's definitely not like opening deer season on public
No.
land where you have a parking lot that's pulling all the way out to the
And-
highway or the gravel road that's filled versus muzzleloading. You might got 1 or 2 vehicles.
And that was one of the allures to me, is the length of time was definitely one, and the time of year when sometimes, I won't say our jobs ever wind down folks, but at the same token, it at least slows down because other people are spending time with family. They're doing holiday stuff, and so we get a little extra time here and there. But also just what you said, I'm fortunate that I do hunt some public ground, but the private land I have is rifle hunted by somebody else. And that's great. Love to see them out there taking part in that season, but they're not out there during muzzleloader season. Now some of them will come back during the late January season, and I'm not there. But it's kind of like, all right, you might open some access to some areas, some public areas. Yeah, maybe they've been hunted, maybe they've been overlooked, but deer will move back into those because of the habitat. Especially we get a few more days into December perhaps. And 2, might open up some private lands that no, they're busy everything else, and sometimes folks are even wanting to know we've got family that comes back for deer season, so we don't let anyone hunt it until afterwards. But yeah, muzzleloader, okay, all right,
which
And
is
there's
good to
probably
know
been-
when you're asking folks for access. It's like,
I think there's some landowners that probably, you're going to hunt deer how? Because, like you said, not as many people there, so there's not as many people knocking on their doors
Right.
asking about that, and sometimes the novelty will be in there. But so muskets, obviously, there's some folks that are using them, so make sure you meet that requirement. What else do we have?
And then we got a muzzleloading handgun.
And that's for our
this-
former co-worker and supervisor, right there in his black powder pistols. And what is that? What's the...
400 foot-pounds of energy at 50 yards.
There
so
you
that's
go.
deliver enough kick at 50 yards.
So, and then if you've got some folks that are really looking for a challenge, not just one shot, which is usually what muzzleloaders present as a challenge, but one shot with a really short sighting plane and harder to hold still and squeeze the trigger without pulling the whole thing. There you go.
So
Now,
well,
you
they
start?
do make muzzleloader pistol revolvers.
They do, but do they meet that?
I think you just have to have your caliber and your powder load calculated out correctly. But it doesn't list muzzleloader shotguns on there, does it?
it does not.
Okay, so that is not one of the muzzleloaders that you could take out there.
Which would that fall under muzzleloader?
If it was shooting a single projectile, it might fall under musket. I don't
Would
know.
it be a musket?
It could.
Because of the other stipulation with the musket, it has to be a single
Single
projectile.
Okay.
I bet it would fall under that.
Okay.
And I think at times the musket was kind of that in between. It was just kind of like before we had rifling, or a good way to make it. It was just kind of like, all right, we're going to load it up with pellets. All right, we're going to load it up with a ball. We're going to, and all that type of stuff. So now if you're watching us on YouTube, you might have a slight advantage on our audio listeners. Today, you might want to check it out there on YouTube. Hunt Nebraska is what to search for. You've got a muzzleloader behind you that has been through many hands, many illustrious hands. I do believe you can see that on that stock. Well, describe that stock. And that's got some unique pattern to it.
This has got a very nice wood stock with some tiger striping pattern on it. It is gorgeous.
It is, and that tiger pattern was created. The story is, the lore behind it is that the man, Dick Turpin himself, where we all office of the Dick Turpin Outdoor Education Center got named after him, put that tiger striping on it. that it looked a lot like the one that I'm holding here, a wood stock, nice walnut, but he decided to make it a little bit more unique, and he had a technique for making that happen. But we've got what some people call traditional, what some people call Hawkins style. This is what some people think of when they think of muzzleloaders. And is this similar to what you shot first, your very first shot on a muzzleloader?
It is.
It is.
Cap lock. Yep.
Cap lock, percussion cap, side lock muzzleloader. That's what I've got here as well. Pretty fancy. And like it says, there are Flint style that uses flint instead of that percussion cap to light the fires. But I'd say probably rare that you ran across the flint.
Yeah, it was mainly cap block. That's what
Cap
I have,
block.
and that's what I've shot before.
There you go. And this is kind of what it got started out as. Some thought, this is kind of a primitive season, muzzleloaders, because they were kind of a primitive weapon, but technology has definitely caught up to it. And there's a lot of folks that'll take to the field with this and just kind of reconnect with the past, because it is one of those neat things. These things have a different feel to them. To me, especially like the ones we're holding here that have a pretty decent barrel, like a lot of them do, because when you've got the powder in there, this isn't, again, not the same powder. This is either black powder or a black powder substitute. It doesn't burn the same way that smokeless does. And so having that extra barrel length actually helps.
It does, because there's a lot of smoke that comes out of these guns when you shoot them.
Yeah, there is. And that's part of the fun of it as well. But it used a little extra time to burn some of that and get to that full velocity. Now, we've got some in our program for new shooters that are a little bit more balanced. Similar, they're called carbines. Same look, same style, everything's the same. The barrels are just a little bit shorter, so it has a little bit different balance. But that is one of the fun things. And these have open sights. Yours does too, right?
It does.
And yours has got brass sights. Mine are...
You got the fiber optics on yours?
Yeah, I think so. And you're just all kind of buckhorn style right in there.
It's got that sloped stock with the very curved butt plate to it.
Yeah,
just
mine's
very
pretty flat. So, but these are 50 caliber, I do believe. Did you check yours?
I didn't check mine, but I could.
And where are you guys checking at?
We're
how you
checking on
this
the
at?
barrel. 54 cal is what mine
Oh, you got a big one, a buffalo gun, and
says.
I've
Right
got a
on
50.
here is where it says it.
Yep, right on the side of the barrel back there, just like modern firearms, and they've been doing that for some time, which is important, because when you're shooting that, there's some projectile options.
And as you're moving them around, there's one more thing it's really unique about the one Rachel's holding there, the ramrod. Do you see the difference between that one?
Yeah, I think this also got some of the same striping treatment that the stock did, and it's so well wedged in there that it's a little bit of a struggle to get it out of here.
That one has not been fired
Most
in a while.
of the time, these are a little bit easier to get out of there.
I think it came from Dick Turpin's office to the next hunter ed coordinator to the next, and maybe it was in others' office for a short time. But yeah, that's the one thing, and that's what I think a lot of folks recognize once they start looking for muzzleloaders. They see the thimbles that hold that ramrod up there just underneath the barrel, and that kind of distinctive.
Yeah.
To say the least. Now that when we're loading them here on the bench, we usually have longer ones, but that's a good one to have, handy to have out in the field.
Yeah, something with a little bit sturdier material. Some of these wood ones don't
Yep.
take a lot of punishment when
Nope.
you're trying to load.
Sooner or later, they're that organic material is gonna catch you. But oftentimes, folks, you're not gonna see this unless again you're watching. So I'll drop it on the table. When we shoot in our muzzleloader programs here for new shooters or those that haven't shot muzzleloaders before, we shoot round balls. The traditional, just like it says, look like a little lead marble, and you've got to be pretty particular about that. This one here I have is considered 50 caliber, but it actually measures at like 0.49 of an inch, which means that it'll roll right down that barrel, because that opening, again, that 50 caliber means 0.5 inches, half inch across.
Yeah, well, you got to have room for the patch.
Gotta have the patch. And again, this is where numbers matter, because they sell patches that we have to shoot with these round balls that match the lead ball and the size of the barrel. So for our 0.49 lead ball, we have to have a patch that's exactly 0.01. And folks, they do make thicker patches than that. And if you try to squeeze this particular ball with the thicker patch, it doesn't work. We've tried.
Well, and we've all encountered when we're instructing where two patches get stuck together and somebody's trying to stick two patches there. That does not work super well.
2/10, no, not even that. 2/100ths of an inch difference, and it's a 50.1 caliber or 50.01 or however that goes. But they do make lead balls that are 0.485, and then you get a 0.15 patch and all that type of stuff. Basically, the two together have to equal 0.5 inches or 50 caliber to go through. And that's what we shoot, and there are deer that will be harvested with that little 50 caliber lead ball out there. Now, it then moves as well to maxi balls. I don't have a maxi ball. Have you shot any maxi balls? Mm-mm. Which is kind of more of a conical shaped bullet that has a little swag to it. Doesn't necessarily need a patch, but it sometimes has kind of its own little material along the sides of the bottom edge. So
in a different
tight.
style of muzzleloader, yes.
So,
but not in the cap locks.
Not in the cap locks.
Nope.
But and we've kind of made the modern equivalent. But those are lots of fun, and I think one of my favorite guns to shoot, if I'm just shooting paper, is one of the traditional. Because one of the fun things is you get things that you don't usually have to worry about in modern firearm, like hang fires.
Well,
which is kind of like, I heard the cap go off, heard that little snap. I haven't heard the boom.
Oh, you're saying that you don't have to worry about that in the modern firearms?
No, you usually don't.
Not usually.
Not usually, but muzzleloaders, you sometimes
have more drama.
Yeah,
sometimes.
It's just like, is it going to go off? I only got one shot. Is it going to go off? And that hang fire is when you hear a snap from your cap to the boom of the full.
There's a delay.
Charge of powder in there, and you might have a misfire.
Yep. Where it doesn't shoot. But what's the difference between your hang fire and your misfire?
Ooh, that's a good question. 'Cause I was going to ask you, how long does a hang fire normally last?
Your difference is time.
I don't know if I have a great answer to that. If it, by the time you've looked at it and kept it pointed in a safe direction, we got the hunter head coordinator. For how long? How long are you supposed to count till?
1 minute at least.
1 minute. And then you have to try again.
I mean, if you are keeping it in a safe direction and it didn't fire and you want to recap it sooner than that, you can. But if you need to address it in a different way, you're going to wait that longer than that 1 minute.
Which has been one of the challenges of these traditional muzzleloaders, right? There is no breech plug.
Nope. There's no way to get in the back of it.
They're not for us. You know, a experienced gunsmith can figure out how to get in there. But it takes a lot of tools and bad words that we don't say on Hunt Nebraska to get out. And so everything going into that barrel has to go through the muzzle. Everything coming out of that barrel has to go back through the muzzle. So they make some CO2 dischargers. And God forbid you have to use a screw on the end of your ramrod.
We're not going to talk about that.
Screw it into the lead ball, which makes it more than a 50 caliber and all that type of stuff. So you try to get something to push it out a lot more. And that's not only the excitement and part of the fun of when everything works, just like, yes, there's a sense of accomplishment, and you don't even know if you've got the deer.
All the ingredients came together. So when you're talking about all the stuff that goes into that gun, do we want to go through how muzzleloader works a little different than traditional firearms?
I got to eat my orange anyway.
Okay. So on your traditional modern firearms, you have a cartridge or a shotgun shell, right? So you've got four to five ingredients in those. You have a case, you have your powder, bullet, and your primer. Right?
Yeah.
Making sense?
I'm with you.
Or a wad on your shotgun shell. And then when you're getting your muzzleloader, you need to actually put those ingredients together inside the gun. So you have it propped up against a table somewhere safe. You're measuring out your powder.
And you get to be good at measuring it accurately and making sure you pour it even more accurately.
Yes. Pour it from the measure and don't spill any, because if you want a consistent, accurate shot, you got to use the same amount of powder each time.
And that's the difference between a poof and a bang at times.
And you got to treat your powder right, because it is what we like to call hydrophilic.
Oh, that's a big word.
Oh, we used a big word.
Another big word.
It absorbs water.
Okay.
If it absorbs water, then it doesn't ignite very well, right?
It gets wet. If it gets wet, then no boom. Got it.
Exactly. Good job, Kyle. He's got it. He's got it.
All right.
So you measure out your powder, you put it in there. Hopefully it's dry. Keep your powder dry. That might be where that comes from.
Yeah, it is.
And then you have your patch, and your ball, and you get those positioned over the end of the muzzle, and ever so gently get with the ball starter, and you're watching your hands and keeping it in a safe direction.
So what
yes,
do you
sir.
do? So very first thing is the powder, right?
Powder.
So
Mm-hmm.
you're already measured, poured in your powder, and then
And we're assuming we're starting from a checked empty muzzleloader as well. If we're going to back up a step.
very good, because
We're having the battles of the safeties here,
Yep.
right here.
making sure we're all on the same page.
Yep.
Oh, yes.
This
Gotta
is a
verify it's unloaded.
verify it's
before
unloaded.
You load it in, because
Yep.
you don't want to be trying to shoot two at once.
Correct. That would
will
be
never really works for the shooter.
no. All right. Powder. Patch ball. Get your ball starter. Get it started down the end of the barrel, and then you're going to use your ramrod to get it down and packed into the powder.
All the way down. Mm-hmm. I get a kick out of, all right, we got 50 caliber, but we use a different way to measure powder. We measure it in
Grains.
grains. What the heck is a grain?
That's an excellent question, which I may not be able to go into detail on.
The best way I explain it is it's more of a volume than an actual,
Okay.
which I guess volume is a measure. It's not a 2 fingers high or an inch and a half of powder or anything. It's a volume, and I don't know what a grain actually looks like. I shoot about 90. Well, excuse me. Right now I'm shooting 100 grains of powder behind my projectile, my bullet, and thankfully it's in little pellet form. So 2 pellets are 50 grains each, and down they go. With our traditional, with loose powder, we have special powder measurers that we pour it into, and we set it. It says, all right, like when we're doing some of our camps, 30 grains of powder or 60 grains of powder.
Because those don't have a lot of recoil on those 30 grains of powder.
No, not at all. And folks say we'll take deer. 60 grains is probably my minimum though. But that said, you can adjust with the loose powder a little bit more than you can the pellets, but you got to have a way to measure it. And like you said, you don't want if you're shooting an 80 grain load and you need 80 grains of powder, you don't want 75. You don't want 85 because it throws your trajectory and your ballistics off just a little bit and what you're used to. And so you got to be really careful about pouring that down. But I always get a kick out of that. In a lot of firearms, like shotguns and gauges, random thing, grains and muzzleloaders, just like, well, I'm sure there's actually someone that knows, yep, that's a grain, but I'm not one. You can't eyeball it.
No.
But that's one of the exciting things to say the least. But yeah, powder, patch and ball is what we tell our campers, or it won't fire it at all. And here in Nebraska, this is one thing I do want to toss out there right now before I forget about it, because we might go deer hunting with our muzzleloader and not take a shot. And if we're using a traditional, it's not going to be fun getting it out. And if you take it out, you're probably going to have to clean it anyway. There are folks that leave the powder, the patch, and ball inside that barrel after a hunt, and they remove the cap or the ignition system.
Which would be the last step before you shoot is your cap or your primer.
Right. Powder's pretty boring if there's not a spark attached to it. But if you take that spark maker away from it, it's considered unloaded, right?
Is it? Is there debate on that subject?
I don't know if there is, but there's a big pause that we're going to have to edit out at 38 minutes and 29 seconds.
I would not consider that unloaded.
And I guess here in the state of
following.
Nebraska, you can have a loaded firearm in
Right,
your
that
rifle
doesn't
in your
matter
in your
either
truck
way.
anyway on the roadway. So
We teach not to
can
keep
you
it
write
loaded.
that down? 3829 to 3847. But no, you can take
Our
the
rule is we've always been to. Of course,
Take the
I'm
cap
going
off.
off of what I've learned from Rachel because that's my muzzleloader. I'll double check my manual here, but you want to actually completely unload. Is how we.
Well, that's
teach,
what
but-
I'm getting into. The legality, what's legal versus
it's
what is
Perfect.
a good idea.
That's where I was like, legally. Yeah.
That's why there's the pause.
oh boy, you too. It's a lot less
There
fun
we go.
without a cap. But anyway, we'll pick up at 40 then.
Okay.
This orange looks too good. All right, remember where we are. All right.
I'm going to wait that whole 30 seconds.
Okay. My orange.
Well, I'm looking in the manual here to see what it says.
I'm
about
pretty sure
unloading.
that's the way it is. I know it was. I'm positive in Iowa because you can't have loaded anything on the roadway out there.
Okay,
'Cause
so we just need to shut you down.
You can't bring it back and forth, or you couldn't bring it in and out because of the moisture. So,
Well, that was the other thing I was
Yeah,
going to argue. Is
that's
like,
a
well,
terrible idea. I'm not disputing that people do it.
all right, here we go. And we're back after a quick pause. But yeah, it's one of those interesting things in muzzleloader deer hunting is after you get done hunting, you got to come up with a way to go and make the gun as safe as possible. So, but anyhow, that's one of the cool things, the components, being able to adjust the powder, the grains of powder, the load, changes trajectory. You can find some things online or from the manufacturer of your projectile, whether it's a round ball, a maxi ball, or some of the other stuff we'll get into here. The Sabo, depending on what part of the country you're from and how you pronounce
How
it.
French you feel?
Yeah, how French you feel. There you go. But it is one of those things. I will say that anytime you shoot a muzzleloader, you've committed yourself to cleaning that muzzleloader as well.
Yes.
And that was one thing that kept me out of the game for quite a while. Just like, I don't like cleaning guns. My uncle, he taught me how to pheasant hunt and duck hunt. He begrudgingly cleaned his shotgun once a year, like he said, whether he needed it or not. And he just felt bad because sometimes he said it causes troubles if you clean that gun. But and so muzzleloaders, yeah, I've seen the results of pistols and traditional firearm muzzleloaders. That after shooting true black powder, sat there for a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden, just like it's almost a paperweight type thing.
That kind of gunpowder is a little bit more corrosive than your standard.
It is, like you said, it tracks water and sticks in there and all that stuff. So over the years, they've obviously tried to make muzzleloading a little bit more accessible to a greater number of people. And to do that, cleaning was a part of it. Getting to the back end of that breech area has been part of it. They've tried to work on accuracy as well, and ease of loading and ease of pushing that bullet down the muzzle and all that type of stuff. And so we went from the traditional stuff to, I've got one back here. I got to stretch for it though. We've gone to, and folks that are just listening to us audio only, this is one of our inline muzzleloaders that we have used in our program, so people get to shoot both of them. This is one that if we're doing a new hunter event and we're not going to get into the primitive side, but we need to use muzzleloaders, this is what we use, mainly because there are some advantages to it. We do now have a breech plug that on this one, we'll open it up. And I don't know if I can twist this out because it probably hasn't been opened in a while. Right out since I can't. Well, let's just pretend I open this easy.
Sure.
There's a tool that goes with it.
Yes, there is.
There is an
Nice
actual
wrench.
breech plug that you can unscrew and pull it out so you can get in there. If you didn't take a shot, really easy for the powder to fall out or pellets to come right out there. They'll get cracked, so sometimes you don't get to use them again. But you have to push the projectile the rest of the way down. And that's what kind of got me intrigued, was this looks easier, and it looked easier to clean, because traditional way of cleaning a traditional muzzleloader was what?
Take the stock off and get a lot of water and work it through.
Super hot water. Yep. And some special soap. Now they got moose pee and all sorts of different names for concoctions that they would make. And it's not really scary, folks. When you shoot it, you got to do it. But this here, the way we were taught is go grab you a bottle of glass cleaner or something like that and spray it right down from the breech towards the muzzle, let it drain out, swab it out, and good to go. And then we put a little boar butter, which I still like. We're not sponsored by anybody but sportsmen and women shooters of this state. But boar butter, I just have fond memories.
It smells good.
Of that. It does. Minty, food grade, in fact, though I wouldn't eat it.
But I'd have to say, I mean, with the optics on a lot of those inlines, it just seems easier to clean the traditional cap locks.
They can be, yeah, they can be. This also has a little faster twist. You were talking rifling, and so these traditional ones, I don't remember the number, but it's higher, maybe 1 in 72. So if that's the case, every 72 inches, that twist is made a full circle. So I understand it. These might be 1 in 48, or some might be even less than that nowadays. And so that it allows that projectile to be spin. It spins it more, and a little faster, so you can have a little bit more modern projectiles as well. But these are oftentimes set up people are using the pellets where they just drop it right down into
So
it.
for those watching on YouTube, I'm going to grab this cap lock again, but you want to point out where the primer goes on that end line?
Oh, okay. All right. I can do that. I got to break it. It's kind of a break action, swing action style firearm here. But I'm pointing right out here by that breech plug.
At the very
Cabinet
center of the
for
back
here,
of the
those-
breech
yep,
plug,
listen
yeah.
to
Right on
us.
the very back.
And it's a different one as well. This is, we made the conversion from the number 11, which the traditional use, number 10, number 11, or a musket cap, to a 209 primer, which is what shotguns use. And it's basically the same one as like a 20 or 12 gauge, but more of that little more spark in there as well. But it's inline because when you hit that primer, the spark just needs to travel in a straight line.
Straight line, yep. And you just got a hammer that you engage to cook that shot off. right
Yep,
in the
which is
back.
similar to yours. You got a hammer.
Yep. It just looks different. So this
It
cap
does.
lock here has this hammer on the side, and the primer would be loaded here on this side lock right here, where that number 10 primer goes. And when we fire, the hammer pushes forward. So go ahead and get that rocked forward. Boom.
And like you said, the spark's going to go forward. They can only go one direction. But then they got to bend around the corner.
It's got a little path it's got to follow in here into the back of the breech.
And that's why they call them side locks, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, the inlines, once they went to the 209s, and you can get some 209 conversion kits for some of the older ones at times, because we got inlines that still use number 10, number 11 caps. We've got some that you'll use musket caps, but more commonly now, ones you buy will use those 209 shotgun primers. Because there's more spark, less likelihood that moisture in the powder is going to be have a huge impact, and also going to maybe ignite it just slightly faster or more reliably is more so the case. But at the same token, hang fires and misfires still happen with these inlines.
They can.
Even with that modern type stuff going on there. The other thing is, like you said, your cap's exposed to the elements. In some states, you're going to want to check your state regulations if you're not going to be hunting Nebraska. The percussion cap, the ignition system, has to be exposed. Where here in Nebraska, we can use this one because as soon as I close that inline muzzleloader back up, it's pretty well protected. Not completely
It is.
weather tight, watertight, but it's a lot more protected from snow and other dirt to get in there, which adds to the reliability as well. Let me just set mine down, but you can see that one still had the ramrod and everything to it. The other thing, talking about faster spin, I'm going to grab this. This is a bullet, and I'm going to let you describe it, Kyle. I'm going to hold it up. You're not even going to see it on YouTube. It's so small. It is a 50 caliber ball.
Cone shape. Just look like the end of your rifling, essentially, or end of your rifle cartridge there where the bullet's at. So very similar, or like I said, very similar to what you're shooting when you're used to going rifle hunting versus your complete true round ball that we've been talking about. Me, not knowing much, but my thought I was asking, does this spin better than the round ball?
Yeah, those are designed to spin faster, and therefore you spin it faster. It's kind of like throwing a football. The more spiral you get on it, the more accurate you can be. It doesn't change the ballistics as far as not going to come out of the muzzle with more energy. It might retain a little bit more because it's not losing it as much, but it will help with the trajectory as far as where I aim. Doesn't change as much because of that tight spiral compared to a slower spinning object out there. But the other cool thing, and these folks are big, talking in a lot of modern firearm for deer, when it comes to center fire rifles, you're talking around 150 grains, 160 grains, that type of bullet weight. I do believe this one's like 245 grains. I've got the box here somewhere.
Yep.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Some of them are 250, some are 300, so they're big chunks of lead. Moving a little bit slower. This one here has got a little skirt on the bottom. We talked about the Sabo, the Sabot.
We didn't describe it, though.
that
We
type
just
of
used
stuff.
the word.
And I don't have one here, at least not fast enough. So describe that for me.
Well, on this one, it includes the Sabo, so it's got basically a plastic skirt on the back of the projectile that functions similarly to the patch in your cap lock.
And the more traditional Sabo loads are enclosed. In fact, is that what Sabo means in French?
I would have to look that up.
We're going to have to look that up right here. We'll do that. We got this great podcast scientific research tool called Google. But it like you said, it works just like that patch in helping engage the spiraling, as well as it's what's going to give you some resistance. And we've gone to these with the skirted ends. I know Hornaday makes some. This happens to be a power belt because they're easier to load.
Oh yeah.
Some of those sabos.
Nobody's gonna know how to pronounce it after this podcast.
SABOT.
That is how it's spelled. Yes.
Yeah. It's just gonna be fun. You guys going to the gun counter. I need something French.
Luckily, you can get most of those on the shelf at the store.
So you guys are defining it correctly. Sabo is a device that ensures the correct positioning of a bullets in the barrel of the gun, attached either to the projectile inside the barrel by falling away off the muzzle. Essentially.
But what does it mean in French? You might have to do it in English. French to English.
Hey, before he tells us, what is your guess that it means?
I think
in
it
French?
means boot or shoe.
What do you
I
think?
would have said cup, but I think your guess is probably more accurate.
Boot
Yep.
or shoe?
Mhm, nice.
I think he was setting himself up.
Yeah, he was.
He knew the answer. He was like, "So what is it, guys? I think it's this. Do you guys think so too?"
But
no.
It is neat, and those are super accurate, but they're also a little bit more of a pain to push down the barrel.
They can be, but you can't goof up and put two sabos on the end of your round like you can with two patches on your cap lock.
No, that's true. That's true. Yeah, you're not going to
Get it stuck as
You're
bad.
not going to, but just that encasing engages more of the rifling, which is good for accuracy, but more resistance going down, and you want some resistance out there. But the nice thing is, like I said, it's one of those things I found cleaning the firearms not that big of a deal. And now we've got all sorts of solvents and solutions that aren't near as caustic for the most part as what we use in our modern firearms. Mm-hmm. Some of them are very natural. Some of them are better smelling, and it goes real quick as long as you don't wait a lot.
Yeah.
It's going to if you're shooting several rounds, getting things sighted in, like I said, a lot of folks putting scopes on their inline. Some are putting them on their traditional as well, depending on our eyesight and the distance of our shot. But you're going to spend some time getting things all figured out there on the range. That might take a little longer to clean up. But on the hunting scene, if you're shooting once, maybe twice, piece of cake. Nothing.
And by the
to it
time
at
you
all.
get out to shoot for hunting, I mean, you've spent time on the range getting everything sighted in and figured out. So you should be an expert at cleaning by that time.
You should have. But the neat thing is, though, if you get to be good shot with the muzzleloader, I guarantee you're going to be a better shot with the rifle. Mm-hmm. Because, like you said, that hang fire and all that, you have to kind of anticipate that. So now I know I've got to aim through the shot.
Follow through on your shot.
Through,
I mean, it's
which
the
is
same
huge.
principles as rifle. It's just you're right. You got to be a little bit more on them.
Yeah. But I will say, every once in a while, I do that. I've been on some hunts where it's like, oh, right there. Okay. You get everything lined up. I use a rest. I've got some tripod rests in here, or find a solid rest just like you would rifle. You get it all set up there, beautiful snowy December day, and you go up there and put the crosshairs right where you need to. You squeeze the trigger, you hear psh, and you're like, yeah, boom. And that deer just looks at it and just like, that's not even close.
Oops.
That was high. What are you talking about? Because there is a little bit of hang fire, even with those modern ones at times. So, but lots of fun. I like it. December season, again, we talked about it long. I want it to be cold and snowy because then, the rut's mostly dying down. There might be a little second rut activity early on in December, and you will see some scrapes open up on the ground, or you might see a few extra rubs, not as many, but you'll see some bucks out looking for does, checking bedding areas and all that stuff, or right downwind of a known feeding area. But if you get, that's a little less predictable, but if you get a good cold, and we're talking, highs in the 15s or teens and lows in that or lower, and there's snow on the ground, they've got to spend more time during the daylight hours up on their feet finding food to stoke that internal furnace. And that's when I like to be out there.
And as you mentioned there, your hunting style changes a little bit, where you want to set up hunting, where you want to kind of focus that time of year. Because, during the 9-day firearm deer season, you're in the middle of the ruts. Deer are all doing kind of crazy things. Archery season beforehand, you have a pretty good pattern what they're doing all season long there. But then after post-rut, you kind of have to start figuring out things a little bit of, there's changes on the environment. It's colder. which means some water sources might be freezing up, so they might be going somewhere else. Food is not as readily accessible at some locations, so you might have to change on that a little bit.
Right, and some of that food is, even though it's on the landscape, might not be fun to get to because it's too far away from the bedding area. So I'm not going to travel that distance anymore. I want to make it kind of convenient, closer to my bedding area, so it takes less energy to get out there. Good thing. Also, good thing is if I can feed and be protected from those strong westerly winds or north winds that are really cold, so much the better. If I got to be out in the middle of a wind-blown field, now those deer have pretty good tolerance to that, but at the same token, if I don't have to be out there getting blown around, getting snow blown up underneath my fur and all that type of stuff while I'm eating, yeah, I'm going to take the option that keeps that from happening. So I think that comes into it as well. Spots where you find yourself comfortable, where there might be a food source, great spot to look, because deer are going to be looking for comfortable spots where they can feed near bedding areas. But you kind of jogged my memory, Kyle. One of the things I heard one of our former big game biologists talk about is think of deer habitat. Here in Nebraska, we got areas that are really good, prime, major, go-to grade A deer habitat. And during the rut and even before the rut, when we have all this temporary jungle of beans and corn here on the east side of the state and wheat fields and other food sources that are out in the open, maybe massed in certain parts of the state, might be marginal deer habitat, but that food's going to draw me out and I'm going to be able to move around there a little bit. But as those fields get combined or harvested and weather sets on, all of a sudden I'm coming from that marginal area. Oh, and the rut spreads me out too. I run around. All of a sudden, as that stuff becomes less available and I'm not interested in the rut and all that stuff, I start kind of retreating back to that prime grade A deer habitat. And so that's something to keep in mind. It can be feast or famine, and that's why you hear some of the December muzzleloader deer hunters here in Nebraska just loving that season, while others cuss it because it's like, I saw deer here in November during the rut. Why are they not here now? Well, might not be in the prime deer range or habitat area. But when you find that spot, it can be good. It can be real good. So
that was very
keep that in mind.
Similar to it's been about 3-4 years ago now, where we had one November firearm deer season where it was, I don't know if it ever got above freezing. Whole 9 days. And it went completely that feast or famine mode. It went to the deer just want to stay close to their bedding areas. They were all going to the prime food spot. Harvest was early that year, so that a lot of that harvesting was already completed. And so everything was just kind of, as I mentioned, everyone was just kind of bunched up.
And I know we're going to have to put a fork in it here because we're already probably gone long, but think about that. Where's the good bedding areas? Sometimes in certain spots of the state, that might be on public land, folks. I try to stay out of the bedding area because it's kind of like everything else. You bump me in my kitchen, okay, that stinks. You bump me as I'm walking around the yard, no, that's terrible. But if you scare me while I'm in bed, that makes me feel unsafe. I might go find a new spot to spend the next night. Deer are no different. Plus, hey, you might not see the deer you're looking for that first night. Doesn't mean it won't be there in 2 or 3 nights or next week. But if you can find those bedding areas that get out of the wind, make those microclimates that are a little bit warmer, whether it's cedar trees, thick cattails in some areas, just a swale, or the roll of the hills out there in the sand hills, something to help cut the wind, let me grab some sun where I'm comfortable, start looking for food sources around there. And if we get some snow, that's why I love snow. Now you can not only identify where deer are, but you can also cross off, okay, they're not here. Let's move on.
Yep.
So, all right. We better put a fork in it right there, folks. We appreciate you sticking with it this long. If you have any questions about muzzleloader deer season here in the state of Nebraska, make sure you ask in the comments below. Otherwise, give us a big thumbs up, like, subscribe, so you know when each and every one of these new episodes is posted. But until next time, we'll see you outdoors. Hunt Nebraska, brought to you by your Nebraska Game and Parks Commission.